Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Orange Pill Podcast. My name is Graham Elwood. Thank you for joining us here on a Wednesday afternoon. It's a little after 3 o'clock here in San Salvador, in Bitcoin country, the shining city on a hill here in El Salvador, Orange Pill country. So I wanted to tell you about this, which is going on. Why? The Max is at the last minute was like, hey, man, I can't make the show. They've been busy. And he goes, Graham, you do it. That's why they asked me to do this show, which is and this is why on our 21st anniversary, we had the pleasure of dining with President Bukele last night. The work of Bitcoin offices defending El Salvador from shitcoins with guidance and the inspiring vision of economic freedom set by the president goes on. So this, Max and Stacy, happy anniversary, 21 years. And they were with the president last night, and they're very busy doing a lot of really cool stuff. So it'll just be me today, but we're going to be doing more of this. Max and Stacy are also going to be traveling next week. So we're going to have more guests, in-person guests on. But today what I wanted to do is just kind of go through some Bitcoin news and also answer your guys' questions. So what you can do if you're watching this on the Orange Pill YouTube channel is there's a dollar icon. If you do that, that's a super chat. You're supporting the show. Or if you're watching it on my YouTube channel. And if you're watching on either YouTube channel, do us a favor and subscribe and like to the other channel. If you're watching it on my youtube.com/Graham Elwood, go over to youtube.com/@orangepillpod and like the show. And then if you're watching, come over and like my show and like, share, and subscribe. So they're meeting with the president of El Salvador, which is really, really cool. Next week, we're going to have on the Minister of Education. And we're also going to have somebody from Reina Chicas who works at My Premier Bitcoin. My Premier Bitcoin is a non-for-profit that is educating El Salvadorian, mainly students. They're going to schools. They're really educating El Salvadorians on what Bitcoin is, how to use it, and not just buy and sell it on exchanges and how to accept it as a business, which obviously it's legal tender here. So they're trying to encourage more businesses to accept it, but also on how to save it and hodl it for the long run, which is something we're all doing and want to do. So like, share, and subscribe, and they will, yeah. Also, Max and Stacy will not be selling books, tickets, anything, anywhere on social media via direct messages. That's another thing too. If you're new into the Bitcoin space, is there's a lot of fake accounts. People have made fake accounts for me. There's a lot of fake accounts for Max and Stacy. And there's going to be people out there saying, hey, I'm Max Kaiser, or I'm Stacy Herbert, or I'm Graham Elwood, or I'm whomever, and I've got investment opportunities for you. Or, none of us are going to want to do a deal where we're any sort of, just be leery of the scams. They're going to pretend to be someone that's known in the Bitcoin space, and they're going to try to scam you out of your Bitcoin. And there's a lot of scam artists out there, and they know that people that are new in the space don't understand this. And so they try to trick you. So be careful of that. And that's why you should be watching the show. And if you are familiar with the space, many of you watching the show are familiar with Bitcoin and how it works, but you got to help all of us educate people that are new, because as Bitcoin now it's over 50,000. It hit 52 yesterday, and now it's at about 51.5 or whatever, which is, it hasn't, a year ago, it was at 16, 17, 19,000, something like that. So look what it's done in a year. And so now a bunch of new people are popping in going, hey, what's this Bitcoin thing? And, we don't want them to get scooped up into the scams. So help us all help them. Don't trust, verify, somebody put in the chat. Absolutely. So let me go into the couple things I wanted to talk about today. And again, if you do a super chat, I'll absolutely answer your question. I'll try to answer your regular questions, but I can't get to all of them, but I will. So let me get this queued up. Yeah, those fake YouTube ads. All right. And the thing that the rule I always say in the chat, like it's cool to debate. If you want to have a debate or discussion, you got to be polite and kind. If you're going to say rude, insulting things, then we're just going to block you. So don't be a jackass. It's okay to have a discussion or a debate. So let me put this on the screen. Bitcoin now, as it right it. So here's what's going on. This was just on. This is from Natalie Brunel. This all comes down to forces of freedom versus forces of control. Bitcoin is a force for freedom for 8 billion people. This is the SEC chair on spot Bitcoin ETFs. Here we go.
Right? It's not just that it goes down, but you would say it's used by drug dealers and used by folks who are doing all sorts of illicit and terrible things. There's very few things that trade today that people talk about like that. Now, there are obviously frauds and things that happen, but maybe not like this. Like the dollar, it's like 100 times lower. I know that's your perspective, but I'm curious how you think about it.
That's true. This is how much has been money laundered with Bitcoin. This is how much. This is Bitcoin. This is dollar. This is dollar.
Yes, Joe. Look, here's the thing. The only true use case for it is for criminals, drug traffickers, money laundering, and tax. I know, but that's a guess. We have a guess, Joe.
First of all, hats off to Joe on this show for calling out the obvious. I'm glad like a guy in the mainstream corporate media, on one of these money shows understands. Look what he said. Like, this is how much corruption and money laundering has been done with Bitcoin. This is how much has been done with the US dollar. This is the thing we say all the time. People go, oh, Bitcoin's used for criminal stuff. Like, do you know how much blood and, drugs are on the US dollar? And again, the US dollar, of course, the $1 bill has a Illuminati symbol on the back of it. So when they say, oh, Bitcoin's a crazy cult, it's like, well, your dollar has a pyramid with a seeing eye on the top. That's not weird at all. That's not weird at all. So let's go back to this conversation. So they're actually talking to Gary Gensler. Well, Gary Gensler knows how powerful Bitcoin is, but he also his job is to protect the central banks and everybody. So his job is to not admit how powerful Bitcoin is, even though he already has. And Jamie Dimon, of course, we know what Jamie Dimon's all about, but let's listen to this.
And what is your opinion that we have something trading on the exchange for the public that has this type of use case, at least as described by the president?
It's the leading market share. It's the leading market share in ransomware, and that's publicly known. It's the token of choice for ransomware. Joe, if I can say, the U.S. dollar, the euro, the yen, you have the whole society using it as a medium of exchange. We buy our cups of coffee, as I see here. We get paid in dollars or yen or euro. And you have a whole central bank support for one currency generally per economic region. That we don't have here. So there's a very real economic difference.
Just part of the attraction, since it's decentralized, and you can't have a profligate central bank.
It's not that decentralized.
I know you're saying because of the ETFs, but really
it's not that decentralized because look how finance tends towards centralization since antiquity. So what do we have? We have a handful of 3 to 6 core so-called crypto
understand the asset itself, the way that
that's how the accounting ledger.
That's how the ledger. And
how many times do you have people on this show that say, I want to invest in something because how the books and records are kept? Joe, really? It's just an accounting ledger.
It's a ledger that everyone has and can't be double counted. It's almost immutable. That's why people think it has.
Do you trust it more than an Oracle database? Or you trust it
more than a lot of us. The Bitcoin gold say they trust it a lot more than the central bank that enables the fiscal authorities to spend money to the tune of $33 trillion.
that's everybody's investment choice. But
And then how many things can be used in a deleterious way? Of course, but that has nothing to do with the underlying thing that you're using itself. I mean, I can go run a car into a parade and run over 40, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have cars, does it?
No, you should have.
I wasn't going to use guns because, God, I don't want to trigger, so to speak, anyone who was said. But
when the use case of a particular thing that you're buying and selling as an investment is just speculative investment.
how many of the 90% of the people that own Bitcoin use it for ransomware? There must be another use case that makes it so attractive to so many people.
Speculative investment.
Speculative investing, that's what, okay. Let me ask a separate question, which is just to pivot this.
So first of all, I just want to say that was kind of great that Joe guy Gensler can't even debate it. So what the purpose of what a Gary Gensler is on a show like this is to the average American person who's an investor. Maybe they're not even super savvy. Maybe they're just like, they have a little stock portfolio. They have a money market account or something like that their financial advisor told them to get in. And they don't know much about this Bitcoin. So they go, oh, here's Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, saying this is what it is. And oh, it's a scam. It's a thing. So why it's powerful to have this Joe gentleman on there, in a shirt and a tie, clean cut TV, finance journalist saying, well, defending Bitcoin. It's important because to the average American investor, somebody married, they have a decent job and they have a little investment portfolio. When they hear potentially, I don't know, somebody like me or even Max, talking about it, they might think, oh, you guys are just crazy YouTubers or whatever. So it's important because a lot of people just get their information from the mainstream media. So when somebody says this and they're calling out Gary Gensler to his face, it's going to make somebody watching go, yeah, wait a minute. Because it's true. People say, oh, Bitcoin's used for evil. Like he said with the car. People use cars for crimes. People use cars as getaway cars. They use cars to transport drugs and human trafficking. Should we get rid of cars? Cars were not designed to commit acts of evil. Cars were designed for transport. Bitcoin is just designed to be an asset as a means of exchange of money and goods and services and stuff like that, right? It's a store and you can use it however you want to use it. In El Salvador, you can use it on everyday stuff. You can buy stuff and sell stuff. You can, in countries that don't have the level of adoption that El Salvador has, you can at least keep it as a store of value. You can keep it as a hedge against inflation. If somebody uses it for crime, doesn't mean that it's corrupt. It's just a threat. Like Gary Gensler thinks, and he was trying to say the central banks make you feel like your money's safe. Well, your money isn't safe. We know that. The central banks helped create the 2008 housing crisis. I was one of 6 million people that got my house taken away from me because I got caught up in their scam. I made a couple mistakes along the way, but then that's the thing. You can't screw up in this country. You're done. In America, they take advantage of you because it's an illegal. The Federal Reserve, we know, is not part of the federal government. It's not like the Department of Transportation or something, or the FAA, which is a federal agency that oversees. The FAA is the Federal Aviation Administration. So it oversees planes and makes sure that they're safe and this and that. The Federal Reserve is an illegal banking cartel. That's protects the oligarchs that run America, which is a kleptocracy. America is not a representative democracy. It's a kleptocracy, right? So let's go back to this video. And the young guy's trying to play peacemaker, and he doesn't want Gary Gensler to never come on the show again. He's probably got his producers in the ear going, don't say that, don't say that, don't let Joe keep talking about Bitcoin.
The next sort of order event question is what happens to Ethereum. For those in the crypto world, they all want to know how you're thinking about that. And really, if Ethereum is a security, how does that analysis differ from how you think about Bitcoin?
What we did in January was cap into one set of filings with you're absolutely right in front of us, but I'm not going to prejudge it for you or the audience. That's something that a 5-member commission discusses. Bring it.
So your thoughts on that? Here's a good point. Do you trust it when you don't know who made it? I mean, the origins are sketch. I get it though. It's like religion, faith until. I don't know if I agree with that. Actually, no. Blockchain is a technology that can be used in criminal enterprises. Bitcoin is a pure, decentralized, and democratic system of exchange, economic energy. Bitcoin is economic super energy. Well put, Mark. Best sales pitch for government. Best sales pitch for Bitcoin? Do you trust your government? That's a great point. Wall Street is turning on Gensler. Absolutely true. Understanding the huge benefits and power of the blockchain is far greater than understanding the power of Bitcoin. Looks like we had some sound stuff. Let's try to fix that on the next video. So that's let's go to this next video. And before we go to the next video, let's talk about that one just a little more. Something just came to me and this is what the Bitcoin ETFs are going to do. And BlackRock is, they're evil and they're pretty corrupt, but they are, as Max said, they're useful idiots because they're going to bring all of this extra money in there. An ETF is an inferior product. If you really want to own Bitcoin, just buy Bitcoin. It's like, would you want to own physical gold coins or would you want to own a gold certificate? No, you'd want to own gold coins. So you want to own actual Bitcoin. But it's it will bring a lot of money into the space. And since the approval of the ETFs in January, this is why we're now up over 50,000 for the first time in 3 years. I think we haven't been over 50,000 since 2021 or 2022, maybe. But what the ETFs will do, and this is when I had Max Kaiser on my show and leading other people, is while BlackRock, I don't trust the BlackRocks of the world at all. They will kind of legitimize Bitcoin in a way that'll make the average investor feel more safe to buy it. Because I think some people, and this is just part of one of the hurdles of adoption, and many of you probably know this, is just the way you buy it. And then moving it to a cold wallet or whatever makes some people go, that just sounds crazy. I don't want to deal with that. I got a friend of mine who I orange pilled, and then he orange pilled his brother, and his brother, smart, sharp guys, had a really good corporate job, and is my friend Ken Wolf, and his brother was just a little like, well, and he had, could buy some on, I think it was PayPal or something very kind of easy like that. And so when it was the entry point was that easy versus, I know, setting up a wallet, getting these 12 seed phrase or 24 seed is like, makes some people go, this seems crazy to me. So that's what the ETF does, is it brings a lot of money that'll drive the price up, but which in the long run, I think will be a good thing for Bitcoin, but it is really, it's an inferior product. I can't say that enough. Thanks for the discourse, Graham. You have a great day. Thank you. A decentralized open ledger of Bitcoin is the best base layer for ETFs, altcoins, and even CBDCs for that matter. As long as Bitcoin multi-sig is enforced and regulated, this is the beauty of Bitcoin. That's nice. Good point. Bitcoin multi-sig regulation with SEC regulated instruments is the only way the SEC has any future. BlackRock business model is to smooth out volatility and worldwide Bitcoin adoption. That could be true. If somebody's asking, where's Max? Him and Stacy, they celebrated their 21st wedding anniversary yesterday. They went to dinner with President Bukele, which was really cool. So they're very busy doing a lot of things. They run the Bitcoin office here in El Salvador, and so they're very busy. That's why Max reached out to me a couple months ago, and I said, hey, I'm going to come down for a couple of months. And he said, well, why don't you guest host Orange Pill? Because they hadn't done it. They haven't done Orange Pill since like last July because they've been so busy. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, is to bring this podcast back. And obviously when Max is here, we do it with Max as many times as possible, but that's where Max is. And they're going to be out of town a little bit next week. But I wanted to share this. There's another video. So this is from Bitcoin News. One of the reasons we've got. Hold on, let me bring that back, get that ready. Since the price is now over 50, which has been nice, and it just touched 52 yesterday. Here's some reasons why it's going up, which are good news for all of us. So this is from Bitcoin News, using the often discussed multiplier, the ADX multiplier. 150 billion in inflows would add 12 trillion to the market cap of Bitcoin, putting it on par with gold's 13.4 trillion market cap of 600,000 market cap at 600,000 Bitcoin. This is the thing when we talk about on this show, the over $400 trillion in global assets. If you add up all of the assets around the planet, it comes up to $400 trillion. Currently, Bitcoin is like at, I don't know, just under $1 trillion or right around $1 trillion. And so even if we're just become 1% of global assets, which would be $4 trillion, that's how a price like 100, 220,000 is very realistic this cycle. Very realistic this cycle. But let's watch this from Bitcoin News. And this is from the Rhino Bitcoin app.
I'm anticipating that by the time we get to the end of 2025, we're talking 2 years, we're going to see total inflows of more than $150 billion. We're only at 5 right now.
And what is going to propel? That's a big claim. That's a big number. What's going to propel that?
It really isn't all that big when you do the simple arithmetic. Individual investment advisors, independents, those that are operating their own firms, collectively manage around $8 trillion in assets, and 3/4 of them in every industry survey done by DAC-FP as well as by Bitwise all show that 3/4 of advisors say that they're going to allocate to these ETFs, and that their average allocation is going to be about 2.5% of assets. Do the arithmetic. $8 trillion times 77% times 2.5% is $150 billion worth of flows. And that's just independent advisors. It excludes the wirehouses. It excludes the regional broker-dealers. It excludes the institutional investors. Well, I'm anticipating that by the time we get to the end of 2025, we're talking 2 years, we're going to see total inflows of more than $150 billion. We're only at 5 right now.
And what is going to propel? That's a big claim. That's a big number. What's going to propel that?
It really isn't all that big when you do the simple arithmetic. Individual investment advisors, independents, those that are operating their own firms, collectively manage around $8 trillion in assets, and 3/4 of them in every industry survey done by DAC-FP as well as by Bitwise all show that 3/4 of advisors say that they're going to allocate to these ETFs, and that their average allocation is going to be about 2.5% of assets. Do the arithmetic. $8 trillion times 77% times 2.5% is $150 billion worth of flows. And that's just independent advisors.
So that's again, these are the kind of things that I want to talk about on the show for those of you who are watching who are new and don't understand Bitcoin, and those of you who are knowledgeable. These are the kind of things I would send to your friends and family. They're like, what's this Bitcoin? Because I think if they see like these people in mainstream, that was on CNBC, doing basic math, saying The asset managers have roughly $8 trillion. And it's just simple math. They have $8 trillion in assets. And if 3/4 of them, 77% of them are going to say to their customers, we're going to put 2.5% of your, that's real conservative. So that's just like, again, an asset manager is, you have your investment portfolio with one of these asset managers. And let's say it's something like it's $100,000. And your asset manager says, I want to put 2.5% of your $100,000 into Bitcoin, into a Bitcoin ETF. And you say, okay, cool. Yeah, I've heard this Bitcoin thing. This price is on the rise. Let's get into it. Right? So 2.5% of 100 grand is $2,500. So you, the individual investor with a $100,000 portfolio, and you put $2,500 into a Bitcoin, that's not a lot. You're not taking a big risk on Bitcoin. But when you do the $8 trillion in assets, and again, he's like, he didn't even count all of the other asset managers. That's where you get to $150 billion, which could get the price into the 100, 200,000 per coin or more. You see how that works? Thank you, Graham, for putting this chat in place. Adoption. Recently watched a documentary about El Salvador. Some critics mentioned the lack of transparency regarding the mining operation. Any reasons no information is disclosed? Which mining operation you're talking about? Most of the mining operations are pretty upfront. So that's another reason to show us why a lot of Bitcoiners were excited about the ETF thing. While most of us are in agreement that the BlackRocks of the world are not great, it's just going to bring in all this extra money to Bitcoin. All these asset managers are going to put people in an ETF, which is going to drive the price up. I mean, it happened with the gold ETFs. It happened. So this is. So somebody wrote, money never made logical sense to me outside of the simple basic $1 for your candy bar. I didn't understand much of it either. Again, I'm not a finance guy. I have a film degree, right? I've been a stand-up comic since I was 18. And I urge people who don't have a finance or a tech background to take the time to start learning about Bitcoin. I didn't get when I first heard about Bitcoin in 2017, I was like, I don't get this at all. Then I started hearing it again, like 2018. I was like, I don't know. And then I started watching the Kaiser report on RT, and I started watching Boom Bust, which was a financial program on RT, where they started talking about Bitcoin and crypto and stuff like that. And I started to get more knowledgeable about it. And I started talking to some friends of mine that knew about it. And then I made a decision about 4 years ago when COVID hit and everything got shut down. It's like, I'm going to become more knowledgeable about this. So I was like, I'm going to watch at least 1 or 2 videos on Bitcoin and blockchain technology every day. And every day I slowly but surely got more and more knowledgeable about it. And I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination. Around my friends and family, I'm probably the one that knows the most about Bitcoin. But in this space, in El Salvador and on this show, I know the least. And when I hang out with other Bitcoiners, I'm not that knowledgeable, which I like. It's a good thing. It's good to put yourself in a position where you're around people that know more than you on a subject and get more. You can learn anything. Start learning on the basics of it. Then you start understanding how money is. Then you start understanding the central banks. You start understanding money printing. You start understanding why we have inflation. You start understanding how the Federal Reserve and how a lot of it is just a scam. And then you go, oh, and when you understand how Bitcoin stands alone from all of the other cryptocurrencies, all of the other altcoins, because it is completely decentralized. There's no Bitcoin CEO. There's no Bitcoin headquarters. When you start understanding those things, then it really starts to click. then you really go, oh. And you see, this is a way, and what I've been advocating for, this is a way for regular people to empower themselves financially. So let's look at another video. Why not short altcoins? I've just, for me personally, I still own a few altcoins. Most of them I cashed out, converted them to Bitcoin. And I have just been either converting to Bitcoin or buying more Bitcoin for the last like 2-3 years. That's all I've been doing. And even just $20 a month, man, $50 a month, whatever you can afford, just buy a little bit of Bitcoin and set it aside because it will go up. If this guy was right, all these, I'm going to just show you video after video after video of all of these financial experts saying it's going to go up to 100 to 200 to 500 to a million. When it's going to hit those prices, well, it's hard to predict that stuff. But but the math is the math. When these asset managers, when all of this money starts flowing into Bitcoin, when people start saying, well, pull my money out of whatever, these treasury bonds or real estate or gold or whatever, and put it into this, that's what's going to happen. You need to take a laxative and get those shit coins out of your system. The ETFs must be set with a multi-sig wallet. The issuer, BlackRock, has a key, buyer has a key, and regulatory sanction agent account has a key. All financial instruments must be set with multi-sig. Well, thanks for that. All right. Let me show you the next video. We've got so let's talk about the other thing that happens a lot with Bitcoin is there's a lot of misinformation that gets put out there, right? And some of that misinformation we just showed you in that interview on that financial show with Gary Gensler. So one of the things they say, there was an article that came out that, crypto is being used for Hamas right after the October 7th attack. Right. Since then, Israel has killed somewhere in the neighborhood of 25,000 Palestinians, over 12,000 of them were children. But this is the part of the fear mongering is Hamas is using crypto. And they just put these blanket statements out there to incite fear. And then someone hears it and goes, oh, yeah, that's why I don't like crypto because Hamas is using it. What? Doesn't make any sense. Well, the Congressman Emmer gets the head of FinCEN to admit that the Wall Street Journal article about crypto being used to fund Hamas was inaccurate and that terrorists prefer to use traditional services to move money. You want to know why? Because with the blockchain, you can track it. It's easy to track. But I want you guys to see this. New to the stream, welcome. Folks, you can support the show by doing the super chat icon, and we will answer those questions, all of them. Look at this. Weep.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Chairman McHenry for holding this important hearing today, and I want to thank you, all of our witnesses, our witnesses for your testimony. On October 10th, 2023, the Wall Street Journal reported that between August 2021 and June 2023, Hamas received 41 million in digital assets, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad received 93 million in digital assets. Undersecretary Nelson, is this Treasury's assessment too? Because the world's leading blockchain analytics firms have called this a misinterpretation of the data, and that the amount that any terrorist might have received is significantly small.
Misinterpretation of the data is a very polite congressional three-piece suit way of saying they lied. They're liars. They're big, fat, dumb liars. But we'll let this guy continue.
Thank you for that question, Congressman. And yes, I think that assessment largely tracks with our own. The numbers noted in the Wall Street Journal piece talked about wallets, but not necessarily the sort of disaggregated among the wallets.
It's assets that people had in their wallets, as opposed to what was specifically going to the Palestinian Islamic
That's what
Jihad.
we think is most likely, and we also assess that terrorists still prefer, frankly, to use traditional products and services. But this is something that we are obviously monitoring very closely.
And I appreciate that. How much do you think actually got into the hands of Hamas or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad?
I think we can have a classified conversation about precise numbers or expectations. I think we have done, both Hamas and the PIDGE, a good job at identifying the virtual asset service providers that they've relied on and the financial facilitators that they have historically relied on that would tend to use virtual assets. So we don't expect the number is very high, particularly.
I'd love to take you up on that, because I sent a letter with several other members right after this erroneous Wall Street Journal report asking for specific information. So we'll take you up on that offer. Undersecretary Nelson, you said that digital assets are not the preferred means of terrorist financing, but I want to be clear, digital assets were not even a popular tool for Hamas or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, correct?
I think that's correct, and one of the reasons that is because our work with our counterparts in Israel prior to October 7th.
I'll give you credit for that, but I'm going to reclaim my time, because I really want to make just a record here, because regardless, to be clear, Hamas is using crypto in relatively small amounts compared to what's been widely reported. That's correct.
That's our assessment.
Yeah. Does Treasury have a responsibility to correct the record here? And perhaps this is involving some of the classified information you talk about. Because I understand that, like today, with FinCEN, Treasury has acknowledged that digital assets are not the preferred financial product for terrorists, but Treasury has the data to paint the correct narrative of crypto and how it's used. And instead, we have senators who are legislating on these false figures and major CEOs using these figures to inform their perspectives on digital assets. Sure, we can go to chain analysis and use their third-party reporting, but Treasury already has the data. So doesn't Treasury have a responsibility to correct the record here?
We put out a number of reports on illicit finance risk in the context of virtual assets, and I think we have clearly stated while there's not a significant uptake that we perceive.
That answer feels very like, well, blah, blah, blah. He called a point. Why don't you guys just say the truth? You have the information. Why don't you put out the truth? And then this Treasury guy gives one of those, I cannot confirm or deny, and I blah, 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 in corporate speak, blah, 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 double talk, blah, 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 cover my ass, double talk. Let's listen to more.
Currently, that it is an area of opportunity that we know terrorist groups could use, and we have seen some, not Hamas necessarily, but other terrorist organizations, particularly focused on the ability to use crypto to move their finance.
I appreciate that, but I'm talking about the misinformation that the Wall Street Journal has suggested, and that certain senators are doing, trying to base legislation on that would literally destroy innovation in this country. And I take it that you don't have a position then as to whether Treasury has an obligation to correct this record with the data that they have. It seems to me that they would. I want to thank you and your colleague for being here again today. And in my opinion, the Treasury must do a better job with all the data it has to paint an accurate narrative of digital assets and not perpetuate a false one. With that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
But bam! Wow, that was.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No, sorry, he's going to go again. That was pretty bold, man. That's amazing. But he's calling out the Treasury Department and saying, why aren't you guys just more accurate? Just, you have the information, be more accurate. And he's saying you're propagating misinformation like what the Wall Street Journal did. And now there's people in the Senate and the Congress introducing these bills, Liz Warren, that are based on inaccurate information. He kept hammering that guy. That was impressive. The dirty face guy. So that means probably he's Catholic. That's probably Ash Wednesday. That's what that is. I was raised Catholic, but I don't practice anymore. But that's what that was. That's my guess is what that was. Didn't just walk to work today with like coal dust on his head and nobody said, hey dude, you might want to. So that's what that is. Everyone keeps asking what that is. That means he's a Catholic. More than likely. That's Ash Wednesday, which I believe is today. Right? The dirty face guy should ask how the biggest terrorists in Gaza, which are the Israeli IDF, how's the area? Yeah, exactly. What a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Why, if we're going to talk about financing, like Hamas is not committing a genocide. No, I'm not pro-Hamas. This show is not pro-Hamas. But Israel has been bombing for 100 and some days now. And who's financing them? The United States. The United States outspends the next 12 countries combined on military. Combined. Our current military budget is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $860 billion. Next up is like Russia at 200 some billion, and then China's another like 200 billion. If we were to cut our military budget in half, we would still be outspending Russia and China $200 billion individually. We'd be outspending them by $200 billion if we cut our budget in half. And we're trying to make crypto the bad guy for funding terrorism. Number one polluter in the world is the United States military. I lost a lot when the BTC exchange got shut down, turned me off for a long time. I wish I could have gotten back sooner. Okay, you bring up a great point. When the Sam Bankman FTF and you had some exchanges like BlockFi, that BlockFi was doing Bitcoin and Ethereum and other staking, which is if you kept there, you were getting interest on it. This is why if you're new to the space and you're buying Bitcoin, you don't want to keep it on the exchanges very long at all. That's why you want to research what a cold wallet is. And there's a lot of good videos out there. There's companies like Trezor and there's other companies out there. Trezor's not a sponsor of this show, but that's what I personally use. But there's other wallets out there, cold wallets. Learn what a cold wallet is. There's plenty of videos out there about what cold wallets are. Swan.com, which is a sponsor of this show, has a really good, their Swan YouTube channel has a lot of great information. And also, if you go to swan.com/orangepillpod and sign up, you get a free $10 in Bitcoin. It is a Bitcoin-only exchange. But there's a lot of great resources out there to learn what a cold wallet is. There's also the Bitcoin.com YouTube channel, which has a Bitcoin 101 playlist. And watch that on what a cold wallet is and how to get. That's why you don't want to keep it on the exchanges, because the exchanges can get shut down. And the exchanges, a lot of them are operating. This is what FTF did. FTX is they're doing fractional lending, just like regular banks are doing. Meaning, if they have, let's say, I'll just pick a round number, $10 million in Bitcoin on their exchange, they then start lending it out. They lend out 20, 30, 40, $50 million of it. So they don't even have, and as we say in Bitcoin, not your keys, not your coins. The keys are that 12-word phrase. When you have that, that's where you want your Bitcoin to be, is on a cold wallet, not on an exchange. If you use an exchange because you're buying and selling Bitcoin, or you need to cash it out and get it in and out of a fiat banking system to pay your bills, which I totally understand. I've been paid in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies where I needed to cash them out because I had to convert them to my fiat to pay bills. that's where an exchange is okay. But if you're just going to buy Bitcoin and hold it, which I would try to hold as much as you can, or hodl as we call it, put it on a cold wallet and let it sit there. Then if an exchange goes under, you don't lose your Bitcoin. Think of it this way. So a bank, traditional banks do fractional reserve lending, which means the banks do not have the physical cash on site to pay people. Meaning, let's say you have whatever, $5,000 in your checking account. And when there's a run on the banks, it's not there. Everyone goes to the bank and says, I want my cash. It's not there because they gamble with it. They lend it out at 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 to 1. So that's why people who've got like this one, I think YouTuber, I forget his name, had like $250,000 in cash in a bank. And he went to the bank and said, I want to pull it all out. And they were like, what, why? Wow. They asked him all these questions. It took a week or 2 weeks, and they only gave him $160,000 in actual cash, meaning they don't have the money they said they have. So if you have large sums of money in a bank, they can gamble it, right? It's the same principle with having Bitcoin on an exchange. You don't know what the exchanges are doing behind closed doors. You don't know how they're gambling with your Bitcoin. That's why you want to put it on a cold wallet. It's like if you had if you have a bunch of money in a bank, fiat money in a fiat bank, and you need to have it there for whatever. Again, most of us are still in the fiat world where we have to use fiat currency to pay our bills. I would get it out of there. So if you have physical cash in like a safety deposit box or a safe, it's better than having it in the bank because it's not there. That's what the run on the banks is. Everybody goes, the banks are running out of cash and because everything collapses and the bank can't pay all of the debt, all of the money they've loaned out. People aren't paying it back. So they don't have the cash then to back up the people's savings and checking accounts. So that's why, same thing, when these exchanges went down, BlockFi, FTX, they did not have the Bitcoins and the other altcoins on their exchanges to give them back to people. That's why, get it off the exchanges. Blaze Saver Wolf is in the chat. How are you? Shave your knuckles for justice, brother. He's the moderator for the Grand Melwood channel. Appreciate it. It's not your fiat, it's theirs. There is the promised land of El Salvador. Can you live completely on Bitcoin? You know, it's getting close. There's still a lot of businesses where they only accept cash, but because the Bitcoin adoption here is growing every day, thanks to places like My Premier Bitcoin that are educating El Salvadorians and President Bukele and his Bitcoin policy, and all of the Bitcoiners that are here, you probably could. I mean, there's a Bitcoin farmers market in El Zonte every other week. There's starting to be a Bitcoin farmers market in Berlin, which is way in the eastern part of the country. You probably could. If you got a job working for one of these companies where you're paid in Bitcoin, and then you only went to these businesses and you rented a place or bought a house, you can buy a property here using Bitcoin. Or you rented a place here from a Bitcoiner, you probably, I mean, my car rental here, I'm paying for it in Bitcoin. My gym membership is in Bitcoin. My Airbnb was not, but I was talking to some Bitcoiners. I almost stayed at a Bitcoiner's place where I would have played in Bitcoin. If you really want to dedicate yourself, you could live here and be completely in Bitcoin. And if let's say you're working virtually, you have an online job and they're paying you in fiat, you would just then convert that to Bitcoin and pay for all of your bills. It's doable. Is a personal loan smart to buy Bitcoin, then pay it off once Bitcoin skyrockets? Great question. You have to ask yourself, can you afford it if it goes into another bear cycle? I believe, many others believe, that this year, 2024 into 25, we are going into a bull run, meaning the price is just going to keep going up and up and up. If that happens, you could probably pay off your debt pretty quickly. Now, just to give you historical reference, had you bought Bitcoin 3 years ago, let's say you bought Bitcoin 3 years ago, put it on a credit card, and you bought Bitcoin at 60,000. You have then been paying the interest on that debt for these last 3 years. And it's not at 60,000 yet. So you just have to ask yourself, and based on your personal question, I wouldn't recommend going into debt to buy Bitcoin or crypto. I really wouldn't. That's a gamble. What if the market, what if something happens like a black swan event? Like, so Bitcoin was at about $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 in the beginning of 2020. And then mid-March, when COVID happened and the whole world shut down, Bitcoin, boom, went to like 3,900 or something, below 4,000 a coin. A year later, it was at 50, 60,000. It hit an all-time high in April of, so from March of 2020 to April of 21, it hit its all-time high of whatever, it was 68, 69, 67,000, something like that. So it's very much a gamble. I would caution against that. Going into debt to buy Bitcoin. I would very much caution against that. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy on a YouTube show. Never leverage to buy Bitcoin. Never gamble with perfect money. Absolutely. What I would do is the smartest thing is dollar cost averaging, meaning you buy the same amount of Bitcoin once a week, once a month, whatever, 25, 50, 100, whatever you can afford. And you just buy it, whatever, like the 15th of every month. You buy $100 of Bitcoin every month, and you just start setting it. And a lot of these exchanges you can set that up to happen automatically, and it's just taken out of your money. So you're not even thinking about it. And so then if the price goes up to 60 and then goes down to 30, like, you're not worried about it. You're just accumulating Bitcoin over a long period of time, which means eventually you're going to be in the profit. That's the most smartest. If you don't have a lot of cash on hand, that's a smart play. That's a smart play. But don't go gamble and get nutty. It's not leveraging when you know that Bitcoin halving is near, Bitcoin bull run is coming, and FOMO is coming. I believe all those things to be true, but again, something crazy could happen to where, like, if the U.S. just collapses financially and there's a global financial collapse, the Bitcoin price will go down with it. Absolutely. Will it come back up? Sure. So I'm just very much cautioning you on that. That's all. It's your money. Feel free to do with it what you want, but Bitcoin at 200,000 in the next 5 years. Yes. If you think you can hang on to it, if you're going to hold it, if you bought Bitcoin 4 years ago, you're in a profit. If you hold on to it, can hold on to it for at least 4 years, you'll be in the profit. When Bitcoin went to 69,000, when it started coming down, I bought it on the downslope. I bought it at 50. I bought it at 40. I bought it at 35. I bought it at 25. I bought it at 17 or 18. My price prediction, I don't know. For 2024, I think we're going to at least break 100,000 very easily, if not 200,000. Yeah. Somewhere 100, 150,000 is my, but Max Kaiser on this show predicts 220,000, and his math on that's pretty spot on. I wouldn't be surprised if it hit that. 100, I think 100 grand is easy. We're already more than halfway there. We haven't even had the halving yet in April. When the halving hits, the price gets cut in half, or the mining, the supply gets cut. The amount of Bitcoins that can be mined gets cut in half every 4 years, roughly. It's built into the equation, into the math of the mining equation. So I bought some silver back when it was $4. Yeah, and silver has gone up and down. If you just hold it for the long haul, it'll go up. Great questions, though. I hate them, but Chase is too big to fail. Yeah, because then they'll start the money printer. Yeah, we've got the halving plus the interest rates. Will Coinbase stock go up? Well, I mean, if we go into this big bull run like it looks like we're going to with the halving and everything, I would guess the stocks on all of the exchanges would go up, would be my guess. But again, me personally, I'm not buying Coinbase stock. I'm going to buy Bitcoin. That's just me. All right, where are we at? All right, I think we got one more. I'm going to do one more video. This one. Yeah, we talk, am I doing any comedy in El Salvador? Not yet. There's not a comedy scene here yet, but that's something I'm sort of a long-term thing I'm working on down here, is maybe starting some comedy down here, comedy club, whatever. So we've talked on the show how Bitcoin can help stop the war machine, right? It can help defund because the central banks fund the wars, right? And one of the things that the central banks and their media outlets that they own and control, or at least at the very least, they buy advertising so they get favorable coverage. Are you guys in El Salvador? Yes. Orange Pill Podcast. We are in downtown San Salvador doing this show. But this is an example. This is a woman who's the editor of The Economist, which is owned by the Rothschilds, and saying the quiet part out loud on how, yeah, we fund the wars in Ukraine and the Ukrainians fight them. And, so watch this. So this is Ukrainians the ones fighting. They're the ones dying. And the United States and European Union are supplying weapons. And this SL Canton pushed and put, what a win-win deal. Our military industrial complex makes money. Russia becomes weak. Who cares about Ukraine?
Giving the money to Ukraine is the cheapest possible way for the US to enhance its security. The fighting is being done by the Ukrainians. They're the people who are being killed. The US and Europe are supplying them weapons. Giving the money to Ukraine is the cheapest possible way for the US to enhance its security. The fighting is being done by the Ukrainians. They're the people who are being killed. The US and Europe are supplying them weapons. Giving the money to...
There it is. There's the quiet part out loud. There it is. It's like, yeah, this is what America does. We just fund the wars and let other people fight them. We go in and destroy other places. Bitcoin stops the wars. Bitcoin stops the war. Max and I have talked about that numerous times. I've talked about it on my show a bunch, why Bitcoin is a machine for activists, because this is how they think. This is how the media that's owned and operated by the big banks and the military industrial complex, this is how they think. This is what they do. And this is what America's doing. America just funds all these wars all over the world and destroy these other people's lands and countries and homes and families, and it's just for profit. It's just war for profit. So it's very much why I'm against it. So why do doctors, lawyers, financial advisors, banks, and people that went to university in general think Bitcoin is a scam? Well, which doctors, lawyers, and financial advisors are you talking about? Because there's a lot of financial advisors. I mean, watch Michael Saylor. He runs MicroStrategies. And the doctors and lawyers and financial advisors and banks, well, it's a threat to banks. That's why banks don't like it. The banks know it's a threat. Bought my first Bitcoin through Coinbase ATM, but sad today because Coinbase has become a shitcoin casino. Yeah. They made us pay taxes to commit genocide. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Our tax dollars go fund all of these wars. Our taxes fund all of these wars to these other countries. America, we have the money. We wouldn't need to print it. We could just use tax money to, what if we cut our military budget in half? We wouldn't be weak. We just don't need 200 some bases around the world. What if we did that and then spend it on our own people, spend it on our infrastructure in America? What if we made a commitment to end homelessness in America, which we could do? America could end homelessness like that. Like that. We could end it. We have the money to do it. We're not some poor country that doesn't know how to do anything. We could put a bunch of Americans to work with whatever infrastructure projects, high-speed rail coast to coast. I'm in a country that is a developing country, but it's getting better. There's construction everywhere. And it's not construction for millionaires and big developers. It's construction for regular people. It's putting all these people to work. America could do that. So, yeah. And the Fed, exactly. Yeah. And the Fed. I mean, America could be a utopia. This is what's so frustrating about America. It could be this utopia. It could be this great place where there's little to no homelessness. There's little to no crime. We have a fantastic education system. And we have good health care. It's just really expensive. Number one cause of bankruptcy in America is medical debt. When you have for-profit health and for-profit prisons, then you lock people up for smoking a plant. Just it goes on down the line. That's why I love Bitcoin, because it saves all this. So the service workers are moving to pay with Bitcoin and get a discount on what you buy. This is now happening. That's smart. We'll close with this. So you bring up a great point. If you have some type of business, online business, you have a coffee shop, whatever, and you're a Bitcoiner or you're just learning about Bitcoin, here's what you do. You start offering Bitcoin discounts, right? Whatever it is. A cup of coffee is $5, $4 if you pay with Bitcoin. That incentivizes people to use their Bitcoin. And you start do what they did in Bitcoin Beach here in El Zonte. They created a circular economy. They didn't try to get the whole country at once. They did one little community. So if my business has it and the business across the street has it, and we all start using it, then we create a little circular economy. They're called Bitcoin bubbles, and they're all over the world. But El Zonte here started that. There's a great podcast, Bitcoin Beat podcast. I've been a guest on it. Michael Peterson, we're going to have him on this show. And that's how they started a little circular economy. So you could do that wherever you live. You could start accepting Bitcoin and give a Bitcoin discount. You have a restaurant? Do you have a consulting business? Are you an accountant? Say, whatever, I'll do your taxes for $700 in cash, or $650 if you pay me in Bitcoin, or $600 if you pay me in Bitcoin. Incentivize people. That's how you create little circular economies where you live. So, how has the infrastructure been improving there, Graham? Great question. When I first came here in June, just in El Zonte, right, which is Bitcoin Beach, it was mostly dirt roads in El Zonte. And then when I came back in November, I saw more paved roads. And now that I'm back here in February, I've seen even more paved roads. I've seen way more paved roads since I've been back. There's still some roads that I mean, there's a lot of, I went surfing the last weekend and, we found the surf break kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And the road down there was really bumpy. But the main roads are getting paved. There's a brand new state-of-the-art library in downtown. Several new hospitals have been built. They're putting money into schools, and you're seeing it out there. You're seeing it just driving around. You see it. So there's still a lot that needs to be done. This country's not perfect, but you're seeing the money being spent. It's one of the things President Bukele said is like, there's money for everything when there's not corruption. There's no more politicians skimming off the top and people having to give all their money to the gang members and stuff like that. So you're seeing these projects. That's what a society should be. You should see new roads and schools and parks and stuff like that. So it's pretty amazing. Great question. All right, folks, that's our show. Thank you for tuning in. We will probably be live, not sure, maybe tomorrow or Friday. I think Friday. Today's Wednesday. Wednesday the 14th. I think we'll be live again Friday. But we usually do Orange Pill Podcast at 3 o'clock Central Time. It's 3 o'clock El Salvador time. We're on the same time zone as Chicago and Dallas and Houston and St. Louis. 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. Like, share, subscribe. And again, if you go to swanbitcoin.com/orangepillpod, you get free $10 if you sign up on an account there and you're supporting our show, and you get free $10 in Bitcoin. And follow me. I'm at Graham Elwood, and follow Orange Pill at Orange Pill Pod on Twitter. And again, if you're watching on my YouTube, go make sure you subscribe to the Orange Pill Podcast YouTube. And if you're watching on Orange Pill, subscribe to mine, because we're simulcasting right now on Orange Pill's YouTube, on my YouTube, and the Orange Pill Twitter. Follow Orange Pill on Twitter. Follow myself on Twitter. Thank you all. Great questions in the chat. Appreciate it. Have a nice day. And, buy Bitcoin, stack sats. Boop.